Previously on Crime Adjacent. It was Mollie Miller who reached out to Nikki and me at our live show just 2 days before this. It was Mollie Miller who told us that the rest stop killer was back, even though there was no real news of it at the time. The Ridgewood Recorder hadn't been able to officially confirm this information yet. It hadn't yet made the Bay Area news, let alone the national news, which would soon overrun this small town. It was Mollie Miller who told us that's because the police were in on it, covering it all up. Why? Because the powerful Palmer family wanted them to. Because the Palmer family ordered them to. It was Mollie Miller who told us about this family, who warned us that they were either killing off opponents to their development deal or that Daniel Palmer himself was quite possibly the rest stop killer. Either way, she warned us they were involved, somehow, in some way. It was Mollie Miller who told us about her history with Michael Palmer, who she went to school with and says assaulted her. So why, then, despite all this, was she in their home, caring for their elderly patriarch, Daniel Palmer Sr.? I saw her, with my own eyes, wheeling Daniel Palmer Sr. into what looked like an important meeting with billionaire developer Cheryl Montrose, before taking her place in the far reaches of the living room with none other than Michael Palmer himself, the man she said assaulted her so many years ago. What was happening? I went out there that night to see the Palmers for myself. They had all refused to comment and were maybe somehow involved in the disappearance and murder of Michelle Diaz, who was found earlier that day on the banks of Lake Berryessa, not to mention the rest stop murders. At least, that's what Mollie wanted me to believe. But laying low in the bushes outside their home, spying, it didn't feel like peeping, although that's maybe what peepers tell themselves. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Ridgewood seemed to be the exact same small town I left so many years ago. A small, secretive city on the far outskirts of the Bay Area, riddled with rumor and gossip, bad will and backstabbing. I needed answers that Friday night, and I knew just where to get them. Here's the story. But first, you may recall Michelle D. Contreras from a few episodes ago. She was a dedicated sleuth and crime-adjacent listener who managed to track down the zip tie killer in Florida. This has been confirmed now. She did, indeed, find him. Nikki has been spending the past few weeks in Naples, Florida, where D. Contreras was discovered. Get this. Michelle found his apartment in Naples. He had been living there under an assumed name of Guy Block, but has, unfortunately, moved on yet again. I tell you this as a dedication in some weird way for D. Contreras and her efforts and how she did not die in vain. But also because I need to mention once again that while we do indeed appreciate all your tips, please give this guy a wide berth. He's changed identities again. He's slipped through the cracks. He could be anywhere. And he's probably the most dangerous and elusive killer we have ever encountered. Nikki is on it. We'll get him, but please, stay away from this guy. From San Francisco, this is Crime Adjacent, the never-ending true crime story told weekly. I'm Chase Patrick. In 2001, 97-year-old Carmel Bosco changed her will to give $450,000 not to her remaining family, but to her caregivers. With no children and only extended family, Bosco relied on two friends in her final months. They cared for her, made her meals, gave her medications, changed her adult diapers. According to the Los Angeles Times, Bosco had a sizable chunk of change to pay for this, that $450K. In 1991, she made a will to grant this estate to her extended family, or whatever was left after her end-of-life care. And yet, within 3 months of her impending death, she moved in with her friends/caregivers who told her they would handle all of her mail and financial affairs. She was too ill. Let them handle it. They were friends. In the following 3 months, while on death's doorstep, Bosco changed her will 3 times, each time giving more and more to her friends and less to her extended family. By the time she died, the will awarded her caregivers everything. Her family sued. Initially, the courts agreed with the caregivers. They got close, and Bosco was grateful and wanted to reward them. It wasn't bad, it was friendship. The case made its way to the Supreme Court, which sided with Bosco's family, ruling her so-called friends/caregivers had isolated her and took advantage of her, and basically committed elder fraud. This happens all the time. The AARP says elder financial abuse accounts for nearly $30 billion in losses each year, from families like Bosco's all the way up to multi-million-dollar fortunes like Brooke Astor of the famed Astor family fortune. Pretty much the same thing happened there. In fact, it happens everywhere, to everyone, across all class lines. Isolation, neglect, fraud. Here, sign this, sign that. And pretty soon, all the money and care is gone. Why am I telling you this? Because I couldn't get Carmel Bosco out of my mind as I sat outside the Palmer house, snooping, more or less, and seeing Mollie Miller inside, like one of the family almost. More than a caregiver, a friend, at least to Daniel Palmer Sr., from the looks of it. Is that it? Is that why she was with the Palmers, in their house, caring for their elderly patriarch? I thought she hated this family, with a passion. When we spoke, I could see the emotion and pain on her face. She hated Michael. She hated all of them. So, what was she doing there? Was this some grand plan to enact revenge on the Palmers by ingratiating herself to Daniel Palmer Sr., maybe isolating him, maybe skipping his drugs here and there, or giving different ones altogether? She was a nurse, after all, with medical training. She'd know what she could get away with and what she couldn't. Then, one day, here's a few new documents. Sign this, sign that, a new will, and voila, the Palmer family fortune is no more. I didn't know Mollie. She and her mother seemed nice enough, worried about the town and their friend Gary and the way police were buddy-buddy with the Palmers. But was this possible? A million questions raced through my mind as I drove to her house on Ridgewood Court that night. I needed answers, and Mollie was the only one who could provide them. So I parked in her driveway and waited. It was so tranquil in the neighborhood that night. Peaceful. The occasional peal of laughter from someone's backyard, the occasional car, wind brushed through the trees. An owl swooped low over the grass like a whisper of feathers, and bats made errant zigzags against a backdrop of night sky. It was everything I remembered about Ridgewood from my time there as a child. A small town, a quiet town, a safe town, at least on the surface. I thought about my parents for a moment. They lived just a few blocks away still. I thought about driving by or even stopping, just to, see them. No, rub their faces in it. Let them know I turned out fine, despite them, despite their fears and moral panic and absolute bullshit. I mean, who forces a 12-year-old out onto the streets with a priest standing behind them for comfort? Theirs, not mine. But honestly, I had no desire. It's been 30 years. The person I consider my real parents is dead now, murdered by the zip-tie killer, moments before I arrived home. I'd only lived with Susan for a few short years. She found me on the streets and offered me a home, but it's who I think of when I think of family, of people who are there for you, no matter what. I wished Bobby Briggs, the third victim in this case, and a runaway at age 12, I wished he had found someone like Susan. Maybe he wouldn't have wound up in the valley, dead. I felt a kinship with him because I wonder, without Susan, would the same thing have happened to me someday? So I didn't care much to go home again and see this hateful couple in a small backwater town. They didn't care. They didn't deserve it. In that moment, as you might be able to tell, I could feel a simmer of anger building, and I wanted to call Nikki. She'd understand. Our childhoods were practically mirror images. Her parents are also still around. Oakland the last time she checked. But I don't think she's seen them either, not for a long time. Susan was enough for both of us. I reached for my phone. I wanted to call Nikki when headlights suddenly cut into the court. Mollie. Her shift at the Palmers must have ended, and she parked right beside me on the driveway. She looked rattled. She said, "What are you doing here?" Mollie stole a glance at the house. It was dark. I could hear Grip and Grin now warming up their welcome chorus. They had heard us. But other than that, the house gave off that electric reverb of empty, no humans. Mollie led me to the front door, where she asked, "Were you meeting with my mom? Where is she?" I ignored her, asking bluntly, maybe too bluntly, "Where have you been?" Mollie stopped punching numbers into the keypad, a noticeable pause before she resumed and shouldered open the front door. The dogs bounded out, greeting us with hair and heavy paws. Sprinkles of crimped 1980s-style hair swirled around us. Even in that tense moment, I was drawn to these adorable idiots. Still, I wondered if Mollie was stalling, getting her story straight. She was supposed to be at the hospital, working a shift. She didn't know I was out there, at the Palmers, watching her pal around inside their home. I was grateful for the porch light. I needed to see her face, her body, how she acted. I wasn't as good at this as Nikki, who was trained in micro-expressions and facial kinesis as a detective, all those subtle cues people involuntarily give up when they're in the middle of a lie. Hand-hiding, face-touching, sometimes physically backing away, a smile that settles only on the mouth rather than the full face. Some of this has been debunked, like the idea that eyes move up and to the left to access the fabrication parts of the brain, rather than to the right to access real, true memories. And yet, add up enough of these strange cues and vibes and, well, I don't know. On the porch, I wish Nikki was there with me. She was trained in all this stuff, yes, but the bottom line is she has a much better bullshit detector than me. So I'm standing there, waiting for Mollie to answer, and I wondered if she'd tell me a story, a lie, and whether I'd even know. Mollie glanced around the house as if performing a visual inspection from the doorway. She turned to me. "Is my mom here?" I repeated, "Where have you been?" It was a mistake. Too blunt again, too forward. Damn it. She got the gist of it immediately. She knew. She knew I knew. Somehow, I could see it in her eyes, that flash of realization. She wouldn't lie and claim she was at the hospital. She said, "You saw me?" I nodded. "In their home?" I nodded again. Mollie smirked. Not slouched or sighed or looked embarrassed or guilty in any way. The smile broadened. A full smile. A real smile. She held up both hands. "You got me." Truth. Admission. This was real. I didn't know what to make of it. Mollie said, "You're probably wondering what I'm doing, right? Why I'm in their house and seemingly helping them out?" Mollie took a deep breath and paused, as if unsure which road to take, how far she was willing to let me tag along on what was, obviously, a very big secret. She finally said, "Looking for dirt. I'm going to nail those bastards once and for all." We still hadn't moved from the foyer. The door was open. The dogs circled us. There was still no noise at all in the house besides us and the dogs. I wondered, where was Margie? I didn't know it at the time, what had just happened to her. Not yet. That news would come soon enough, within minutes. Mollie told me the full story in a full rush, as if relieved to let it all out, to tell someone. She told me that Violet Palmer made the approach first, at the hospital, a few months ago. Daniel Palmer Sr. had suffered a serious stroke. They thought he would die. They prepared for it. It was actually Mollie who saved his life, not with CPR or any real medical interventions, but she had just read about a new drug that was being used for stroke victims. If you got it into them fast enough, it lessened the severity of the outcomes, like aspirin for heart attacks. She told the doctor on call. They administered it, and Daniel Palmer Sr. lived. In fact, over the next few months, he recovered quite well. He needed a wheelchair and struggled to say some words, but he was more or less okay. Mollie said that one day, in Palmer Sr.'s recovery room on the 4th floor, Violet entered and made Mollie an offer. Violet said she appreciated Mollie's care despite their history, and so she offered Mollie an untoward amount of money to continue his recovery at home. Mollie smiled to herself and shook her head as if still in disbelief. She said, I told her to go fuck herself. I mean, the gall. I was just doing my job. I wasn't going to let an old man die because... I got the gist. Because of them. All of them. And yet, Mollie said this all happened more or less at the same time her dad died, in September. Things were changing, fast. Her mother was eager to get out of town, and Mollie figured, why not me as well? It could be a fresh start for both of them. They could leave Ridgewood and the Palmers and all the bad blood behind them once and for all. Mollie had a good job, a great job. She figured she'd cash in with the Palmers. Violet did, indeed, offer her an insane amount of money for care, and Mollie upped the price like fuck you money. In the foyer, Mollie caught my eye. She looked sad. She said, it was like Violet knew. She's a smart one. She knew I was trying to bleed them dry, and I think... She paused, cocked her head, straightened herself. She continued, I honestly think the woman agreed to the money as sort of a apology, if that makes sense. Like an unspoken admission of guilt, like I had done nothing wrong, and she knew I was the real victim in all this. So Mollie said she threw out the highest number she could think of, and then, once agreed upon, it was suddenly real. That was real money, life-changing money. She would suck it up, work for the Palmers for a few months, gather a giant nest egg, and then, just like her mother, leave Ridgewood, once and for all. Her dad was gone. Her mom was leaving. There was nothing there for her anymore. Honestly, it made sense. Sort of, I guess. I wondered if I could do the same, whether I could endure working for the people I hated most if that meant life-changing money was at the end of it. This podcast has sort of stilted my thinking, if I'm being honest, because Nikki has built a small empire that has already given us life-changing money. Nice cars, travel, a penthouse in Russian Hill with views of downtown in one direction, the Golden Gate in the other, an office downtown, smack dab under the Transamerica Pyramid. We have nearly 40 employees now, working behind the scenes to investigate these cases and help us put out new episodes each week to be with you. I wondered, if we didn't have all that, could I go live with my parents again for a few months if that meant financial freedom for years to come? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, how much pain could you endure for years of freedom? I began to wonder just how much Violet offered her. But like I said, that was only part of Mollie's plan. A grin spread across her face. She said, it wasn't just the money. I suddenly had access. I had always suspected Daniel Palmer could be the killer, and I wasn't lying when I told you the police were covering up for that family. I knew where she was headed. So this was your chance? To dig up dirt? Mollie shrugged. I know it sounds naive, but I was inside their house now, inside their office. No one believes me. They are evil, bad people, and so I thought if only I could find that one clue police have been searching for. I don't know. I know it sounds stupid to say it out loud. Not all of this is strictly verbatim. I wasn't recording, but it's as close as I could remember. But I do remember thinking, the plan made sense. I've done more or less the same thing myself, whether in the Marines or for this podcast, pretending to be one thing while secretly digging up dirt, especially on people she genuinely couldn't stand. A silence filled the space between us. The door was still open, and a new light appeared on the horizon, and a sound, sharp and noticeable. It sounded almost like a siren somewhere, starting up. Mollie glanced into the house again. It was eerie and quiet, except for that siren, which was building now, getting closer. I thought it was strange. It was late. Where was Mollie Miller at this hour? Mollie read my mind. She said, I bet she's at B's. They're thick as thieves and probably plotting about the Palmer development vote next week. The sirens were close now. We both turned. Light flooded into the court, a cascade of reds and blues, and the sound of a caravan of rubber on asphalt. The chief's car slammed into the driveway first, followed by Detective Jones behind him, and then Officer Samantha Reynolds behind her. 2 more cars streamed in after them. The sirens went quiet as doors opened and shut, but the lights remained, bouncing across the houses. I could see neighbors opening doors and peering from behind curtains. Chief Williams approached first, unsure what to say. But from one of those other cars emerged Bea Macy. She shouldered her way to the front porch. Mollie looked entirely confused. She said, "Bea, where's my mom?" Everyone looked at their feet. This wasn't good. Bea grabbed Mollie's shoulders gently and gave that pitying look of an old friend about to deliver bad news. Bea said, "We need to get you to the hospital, honey. Margie has been assaulted." Mollie stumbled backwards. "What?" "She's been beaten. It's bad, honey. You need to come with me." Bea led Mollie to her car, barking orders at the chief and the other officers. Care for the dogs, lock the house, bring Mollie's car. Bea gently cared for Mollie, with all the thought and tenderness of an old family friend on the one hand, and on the other, didn't wait for answers from the chief or the other cops. She knew her demands would be met. I admired Bea. As she and Mollie moved to her car, I noticed movement at the mouth of the court. It wasn't a cop car or even a Lincoln, not the security goons who were following everybody. It was a tow truck, idling with menace as a lone figure watched the scene play out from the shadows. Bea slammed her passenger door shut and went to the driver's side where Chief Williams and Detective Jones tried to stop her, which, fat chance. Williams said, "Councilwoman, we need a statement from her first." Bea waved him away. She said, "At the hospital. She needs to see her mama, if there's still time." The car spun out of the court and was gone. Bea had been there all of 1 minute, and then poof, she was gone, whisking Mollie to the hospital to see her mother. As she disappeared out of sight, so too did the tow truck, I noticed. It felt like a tornado had spun into the court and then simply disappeared. I was stunned. I said, "Chief, what happened?" My phone suddenly buzzed. It was a text from Winnie, the reporter. Strange. It was so late. She probably wanted to let me know about Margie, I thought. Chief Williams approached, not kindly. He put his hands on his hips and looked me up and down, slowly. He said, "Where have you been tonight, Mr. Patrick?" This was strange as well. Cops usually shoo reporters away, especially true crime podcasters. They hate us. So what did he want with me? My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it. Winnie, again. The text said, "I have a source willing to discuss the tokens, finally, but..." The chief and Detective Jones got closer. Williams said, "I asked you a question. Where were you tonight?" "Why?" Williams said, "Margie Miller has been assaulted. It's bad. She was found right outside the Palmer residence." There it was. But how could he have possibly known I was out there? I didn't see him, or Margie, or a killer for that matter. Was he fishing? Casting a wide net over any possible suspects, including strangers new to town, nosy strangers in particular, like me? The phone buzzed again. Winnie, another text. "Meet me tomorrow morning. They'll only talk if you're there. This could be it." Williams looked down and smirked at my shoes. They were nothing fancy. On running shoes that are comfortable and fashionable. But they also have, I recalled in slow realization, wide grooves in the soles, including a narrow canyon that collected rocks from time to time. They were, I realized, very noticeable. But there was no way they already had shoe prints from that whole area. Not at this hour. Not where I was laying down in the bushes. Had they noticed me somehow? Did the Palmers or the security or Williams know I was out there? Did I miss any cameras? I was rusty at stakeouts for sure. It had been years. Williams looked up from my feet. His smile was real. It spread across his full face as if entirely pleased with himself. He said, "You're going to have to come with us, Mr. Patrick." The smile somehow widened. and we're going to need those shoes. Next time on Crime Adjacent. From 1984 to 1985, there was a killer lurking outside of homes in Los Angeles. He crept along the shadowed edges and stood on flower beds and backyard patios, testing windows and screens for any opening. It would be these movements that linked Richard Ramirez to the Night Stalker murders. His black Avia 440s left distinctive treads at each of these houses, and this was a rare shoe not sold widely at the time. This, according to Los Angeles sheriff detectives, was the key link between the cases. It was also the key link to the murders in Los Angeles and the murders of Peter and Barbara Pan in August 1985 in San Francisco. Same gun, same shoe prints, LA detectives knew their guy had traveled north. And then, San Francisco Mayor Dianne Feinstein let these details slip in a press conference. The LA detectives fumed. This was their best lead, and she just let the world know about it. Although Ramirez would be identified soon enough via fingerprints from a crime scene, he did indeed abandon the shoes, which were never found. I couldn't help but think of this case as Chief Williams pushed forward, demanding my shoes. I thought for a moment he would bend down himself and rip them off my feet. I needed help. Fast. If you enjoy these stories and want immediate access to behind-the-scenes content, sign up for free updates and bonus information at our Patreon page, patreon.com/crimeadjacent. Until next time, this is Chase Patrick from San Francisco with a reminder, stay tuned. You'll never unhear what happens next.